Welcome back, brothers, to the Savage Gentleman podcast. I'm your host, Pastor Benjamin Wilson, and today we're going to cut through the noise and get real about one thing: transforming adversity into strength. Y'all, there are too many men that are walking around defeated, thinking adversity is something to escape. But I'm here to tell you the exact opposite. Adversity is the key to unlocking the strength that is already inside of you. Today we're going to talk about how many of the Bible did exactly this. And we're going to connect it to the powerful truth of Ecclesiastes 12:13. You're not here to merely survive the trials in your life. Brothers, you're here to thrive in them. Over the last few episodes, we have dived deep into, or our focus has been on Ecclesiastes 12:13. And for the next few moments, I want to stay right in that vein because this verse sets the foundation for how we understand everything. Fear God and keep his commandments. For this is the duty for all mankind. That's the purpose. What happens when you know your purpose and life still throws everything at you? What happens when the storm hits? When you lose that job? When you lose the relationship, or it breaks or just completely breaks apart? What do you do when the world seems to be against you? Adversity isn't just some random chaotic event. It has a purpose. God uses adversity to refine us, to shape us, to strengthen us. Remember this, brothers: God does not waste anything, including the hard times, especially the hard times. Adversity is a tool in God's hands, and through it, he forges men who will stand firm in their purpose. This is the marrow of faith in adversity, that God can take what feels like defeat and transform it into victory. That what feels broken can become the very thing that builds us. When we walk through seasons of pain, it's easy to think that the hardship is pointless, that it's only there to break us down. But God is the ultimate restorer. The pain, the struggle, the adversity, it all serves a purpose. In God's economy, nothing is wasted. He is the master craftsman, using every piece of adversity to shape you into the man he has called you to be. In the Bible, we see this over and over. Men of faith were not immune to adversity. They were forged in it, forged in it, forged in it. Uh, it's adversity that caused them to grow, and it built their character. So instead of asking why me, we have to ask in adversity, how is this making me stronger? Take Joseph, for example. This man faced more adversity than most of us could even imagine. Hated by those who he expected to love him, misunderstood by those he expected to know him best, betrayed by those, by not just anyone, but by his brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused of sexual assault by his employer's wife, no less. No, let me correct that. Because Joseph was not just in a position of leadership, he was a slave. So it wasn't his employer's wife, it was the wife of the man who owned him. And because of this, he was thrown into prison. It would have been easy for him to give up, to let adversity break him, but it didn't. Why? Because Joseph understood something vital. His adversity was not the end of his story. Even in slavery and prison, Joseph kept his eye on God's purpose and never lost hold of the hope that God would fulfill the dreams that he gave to him. Despite being betrayed, sold, and falsely accused, Joseph didn't allow bitterness or despair to take root in his heart. He refused to let his circumstances define him or steal the vision God had placed inside of him. Joseph's strength wasn't found in his ability to escape adversity, but in his ability to endure it. And that is what it is that God can use to show us how we ought to be able to transform our adversity. God elevated Joseph from the lowest of places, forgotten in prison. Joseph was raised to become the second most powerful man in Egypt. But here's the key: it wasn't the position or the power that made Joseph great. It was the way he handled adversity that showed that his strength. And that the fact that his adversity couldn't break him, but he used it to build him. Brothers, we have to do the exact same thing. We have to understand this. We have to understand greatness doesn't come from avoiding the trials. It comes from walking through them with hope and integrity. Like Joseph, when we hold on to the promises God has spoken into our lives, when we refuse to be defeated by our circumstances, we become the men God has called us to be. God has given each of us dreams, visions, and a purpose, and adversity is the very thing He uses to refine us into the leaders, into the men we were meant to become. So don't give up when life gets hard. Hold on to the hope that what God has started, He will indeed finish. When we face betrayal, hardship, or failure, we can look to Joseph as a model. You have a choice. Will you let the adversity define you, or will you use it to as a platform to rise higher? Just like Joseph, you're not meant to be stuck in the pit. You're destined for the palace, but the pit is a part of your process. You cannot reach your destiny without walking through adversity. You cannot reach your destiny without walking through adversity. Now I want to take a moment and let's jump ahead and look at Peter, one of Jesus's closest disciple, a man who faced one of the deepest adversities we could imagine. Failure in the moment that mattered most. Peter was bold. He was passionate. But when the pressure came, when Jesus was arrested, Peter denied even knowing him. Not just one time, but three. Imagine that. The man who said he would never leave Jesus, the man who swore he would stand by his side, the man who cut off another man's ear, crumbled under the weight of fear and pressure. Peter's denial wasn't just a slip of the tongue, it was a moment of complete failure. The very thing he swore he would never do, he did. And after that third denial, the rooster crowed and Peter remembered Jesus' words, how he had predicted Peter would deny him. Scripture says Peter went out and wept bitterly. Those weren't just tears of sorrow. There were tears of brokenness, of regret, of shame. Peter had hit rock bottom, and in that moment, he had every reason to think his story was over. But here's where the transformation begins. You see, what Peter didn't know was that Jesus wasn't finished with him. Even in Peter's failure, Jesus had a plan. After his resurrection, Jesus came to Peter on the shores of Galilee and gave him a chance to reaffirm his love three times, mirroring the three denials. Jesus didn't come to condemn Peter. He came to restore him. And that's exactly what he did. Brothers, here's the point. Peter's adversity, his failure, became the very thing that transformed him. It humbled him. Yes, it broke him down, but it also built him up into the man that God was able to use. After that encounter with Jesus, Peter was no longer the impulsive, fearful man who denied Jesus. He became the bold leader of the early church. The same Peter who crumbled under pressure became the man who stood before thousands on the day of Pentecost and preached the first sermon of the Christian church. The same Peter who denied knowing Jesus was later to be imprisoned and even martyred for his faith. Brothers, we've all had moments like that, moments where we failed, where we've denied what we know to be true, where we've lost ourselves and completely let ourselves down. But failure is not the end. Just like Peter, our adversity can be the very thing that transforms us into stronger, wiser, more faithful men. The key is to let the failure refine us, not define us. Peter doesn't stay down in his denial. He got back up. He faced failure, allowed Jesus to restore him, and became one of the greatest leaders the church has ever known. And the same can happen for you. Maybe you've denied your purpose. Maybe you failed under pressure. But just like Peter, Jesus is ready to restore you and to transform your adversity into strength. It's not over. In fact, the greatest days of leadership and strength may just be on the other side of your failure. For us, brothers, this is absolutely critical. We live in a world that tells us to be self-reliant, to handle everything on our own, but that's not biblical manhood. Biblical manhood acknowledges that real strength comes from God. When we're weak, when we're struggling, that's when God shows up in ways we can't even imagine. So don't despise the adversity, embrace it, because it's in those moments that God's power is made perfect in you. Now, let's take this from theory to action. I don't want to just talk. How can we take the lessons from men like Joseph, David, Paul, and Peter and apply them to our lives? We're talking about practical steps and things you can implement starting right now. So here are a few things. There's actually 5 things I want to share with you in the areas of application that can help you transform adversity into strength in your own life. The first one is recognize the purpose. Adversity isn't random. It's part of God's plan to strengthen you. One of the most powerful things you can do when you face a challenge is to shift your perspective. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Ask, what is God trying to teach me through this? That shift will change how you approach adversity. There's a few things you can do. You can journal your struggles. Take time to write down the challenges you're facing. This isn't just a venting exercise. This is about identifying patterns and seeing how God is using these trials to develop your character. After each entry, ask, what is God trying to build in me through this? It could be patience, resilience, or even trust. The second is to seek wise counsel. Don't go through adversity alone, brothers. Talk to someone who can offer wisdom and godly perspective, whether it's a mentor, a pastor, or a trusted friend. Sometimes we can't see the purpose in the struggle until someone points it out for us. And the other point for this is pray with intent. When you pray during hard times, ask God specifically for clarity to see the purpose in the adversity. Don't just pray for relief, pray for revelation. Ask God, what are you developing in me through this season? The second is this: respond with faith, not fear. Like David, face your giants with faith. Don't let fear paralyze you. God has already equipped you with what you need to overcome. In the heat of adversity, your response is what determines whether you grow or if you retreat. Fear is natural, but as men of faith, we don't let fear have the final say. Faith must become your default response when you're facing a challenge. Here's some steps for you. Take immediate action. Fear thrives in hesitation. Let me say that again, brothers, because this is rich. Fear thrives in hesitation. Fear thrives in hesitation. When you're facing difficult situation, make a move, no matter how small. If it's a conflict at work, start a conversation. If it's financial, create a plan. Faith is not passive, it's active. David didn't wait for Goliath to come to him. He ran into the battle. Second, speak truth over your situation. Don't let fear dictate your thoughts. Every time fear starts to creep in, counter it with God's promises. Declare scriptures like 2 Timothy 1c, 2 Timothy 1:7. For God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of love, but of power and of love and of self-discipline. Say it loud if you need to. You need to speak faith over your life every single day. Visualize the victory. Just as David knew that God had already given him victory over Goliath, you need to see yourself on the other side of your adversity. Close your eyes and picture the victory, what it looks like, feels like, smells like, and how your life will change once you have overcome. Faith is about believing that God has already worked it out, even if you haven't seen the result yet. Number 3 is this: rely on God's strength, not your own. When the adversity feels like too much, remember Paul. God's strength is revealed in your weakness. The world tells us to handle everything on our own, but biblical manhood, we talked about this, teaches us that real strength comes when we surrender to God and lean into his power. It's not about muscling through life alone. It's about relying on a strength greater than yours. Brothers, develop a daily surrendering practice. Make it a habit every day to surrender your struggles to God. This could be through prayer, where you constantly hand over your worries and burdens to him. Say something like, God, I can't do this. I can't do it on my own, but I trust you to carry me through it. Surrender is a daily discipline. As a part of this, recognize your limits. Stop trying to do everything by yourself. Recognize when you're running on empty and ask for help, whether it's reaching out for spiritual support, leaning on a community, calling a brother, or taking a Sabbath. Allow yourself to acknowledge that you're not meant to handle everything on your own. And then also invite God into the details. Don't just bring God the big stuff. Let him into the small, everyday challenges. Paul's strength in adversity came from an intimate connection with God. Ask for God's wisdom and strength in the day-to-day and watch how his power shows up, even in the smallest details of your life. Number 4, remain committed to the process. Adversity often tests our endurance, not just our immediate reaction. The transformation happens, brothers. The transformation happens when you stay committed to the process of growth, even when it gets uncomfortable. Endurance is a vital part of transforming adversity into strength. It's easy to start strong, but finishing well is what separates the extraordinary from the ordinary. One of the ways you can do this is to set small milestones. Instead of focusing on the entirety of the problem, break it down into smaller, manageable pieces. Celebrate every victory, no matter how small. This keeps your momentum going and helps you stay the course when things get tough. Then I want you to surround yourself with accountability. Transformation is difficult when you're walking alone. Find men who will hold you accountable, whether it's through a Bible study group, a close friend, or a mentor. Allow them to challenge you, encourage you, and remind you of the bigger picture when you're tempted to give up. And the last part of this is stay in God's word. Make scripture your daily source of strength. When adversity seems overwhelming, God's word provides perspective, encouragement, and wisdom. Stay grounded in the word and let it fuel your perseverance. Number 5 is this: revolutionize your mindset. Adversity doesn't just impact circumstances, it impacts your mindset. How you think about challenges determines whether they break you or make you. Romans 12:2 tells us to be transformed by the renewing of our minds. Brothers, your mind is the battlefield where adversity is either defeated or magnified. To transform adversity into strength, you must first transform the way you think about it. Here's how you can do this: practice gratitude in hardship. One of the most powerful ways to shift your mindset is to practice gratitude instead of in the place of adversity. Each day, write down one thing you're thankful for, and even in the midst of a storm. Gratitude shifts your focus from what's going wrong to what's still good, reminding you that God's is still at work. Then feed your mind with positive input. Surround yourself with positivity, whether it's through uplifting podcasts, books, or sermons. Cut out the noise that feeds negativity, doubt, or fear. What you feed your mind will shape your perspective on adversity. And then reframe failure as feedback. Instead of seeing failure as the end, see it as feedback. Every setback, every mistake is an opportunity to learn and grow. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I do better the next time? When you see adversity as part of the learning process, it loses its power to defeat you. Brothers, here's those 5 things to make this practical again. Recognize your purpose, the purpose. Respond with faith, not fear. Rely on God's strength, not your own. Remain committed to the process and revolutionize your mindset. These aren't just ideas, they're tools. Tools you can use to transform adversity into strength, not just in theory, but in practice. Start today. Don't wait for the adversity to pass to become stronger. Let adversity build you into the man God has created you to be. Recognize the purpose in your trials. Respond with faith. Rely on God's strength. Remain committed to the process and revolutionize your mindset. That's how you rise up. That's how you lead by example. But listen, adversity is going to come. That's an absolute guarantee. But what you do with it, that's what makes the difference. You're not meant to fold under pressure. You're meant to rise, to lead, to transform adversity into strength, strength that defines your character. just like Joseph and just like Peter. You're not the exception. God's been using adversity to build men since the beginning of time, and he's ready to do the same thing in your life. So the next time in the middle of a storm, don't ask, God, why me? Instead, ask, how is this making me stronger? How is God using this to shape me? You are a man of purpose, and nothing, not even adversity, can change that. Brothers, through the next time, be savage, be gentle, be extraordinary.
If your faith could use a boost, you're a man of action, and you're looking to grow in your faith alongside like-minded men. Let's dive in together. We invite you to join the discussion on the Savage Gentleman's Padlet page. This is where we can dive deeper, share our insights, ideas, and reflections. Let's talk about how our lives are being shaped as men of God. And don't forget to join the Savage Gentleman's Facebook page. It's another fantastic space to connect, share insights, and support each other on this journey of biblical masculinity. The links to both the Padlet page and Facebook page are in the description. You can also find them through the Savage Gentleman's YouTube channel. We're looking forward to hearing from you and seeing how God is moving in your life. Until next time, be savage, be gentle, be extraordinary. Join us today.
Thank you for watching. Like and don't forget to subscribe.